Welcome into the PFF podcast. Steve Palazzolo here, along with Sam Monson. It is our Week 3 review podcast, and it was a pretty crazy Week 3. But before we get into the picks, I want to tell you about our friends over at DraftKings.com. Football season has begun, but it's not too late to get closer to the game you love with DraftKings 1 Week Fantasy Football. This Sunday, DraftKings is hosting a $100,000 Pick'em contest that is totally free to enter. Pick'em is the newest way to play 1 week fantasy football, and drafting your team is faster than ever. DraftKings has organized players into 8 tiers, and all you have to do is select one player from each tier. Choose between public contests with big cash prizes or private contests where you can compete against a group of friends. DraftKings also has beginner and casual contests where you'll play against people of similar skill level. The best part is you can draft a new team each week without any commitment. So get to DraftKings.com now and use promo code PFF to play in DraftKings' free contest with $100,000 in total prizes this Sunday. That's promo code PFF to compete for your share of $100,000 in total prizes. The contest is totally free to enter, so why wouldn't you try? DraftKings, the game inside the game. Eligibility restrictions do apply, and see DraftKings.com for more details. Sam, a lot of games. I don't know how you did on your picks.
Not good. Not good.
I don't think too many people did.
Nobody did good, surely, this week.
You didn't have the Bears? You didn't have the Bears winning?
Nobody had the Bears winning. Nobody did anything this week in Pick Watch, surely. This was the most ridiculous week I've ever seen. Hang on. Where's this week's? One guy was 11-4. 2 guys were 11-4. Rich Eisen was 10-5. 3 guys at 10-5. Everyone else 9-6 and below. And by below, I mean quite some distance below.
Rich has a good feel. This felt like one of those weeks where it was really difficult.
Gordon went 4-11.
And Gordon's our best picker.
Mike went 5-10. Somehow I didn't. Where did I go?
I had 7 or 8 wins, I think.
Nathan was 6-9. I was 7-8. There you go.
Do you have my numbers there?
I'm finding you. You were higher than me. 7-8 with Zach. Chris 7-6. That means you must be up at 8. You must have been broken 500.
I had a decent week.
8-7. You and Neil broke 500. 8-7. So
I got one of the upsets right.
Not a good week.
So it felt like one of those weeks where you have a lot of 2-0 teams, like say the Baltimore Ravens. They're 2-0, but you're like, okay, are they really a 2-0 team? And that always seems to happen, I think, in week 3. You have 0-2 teams that are better than they should be, or better than their record is, and 2-0 teams that aren't as good as their record. So when I rolled into the office this morning, Sam, I said, hey, podcast topics, what'd you just tell me? Just craziness from week 3, right?
The whole thing, everything. I mean, it was absolutely crazy. 2 people, by the way, on Pick Watch picked the Chicago Bears over the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was 98% consensus that the Steelers are going to win that.
In Chicago, too.
90. But the thing is, about this week, it wasn't even just the upsets, the Chicago knocking over the Steelers. Even some of the close games, why were they close? The Houston Texans almost beat the New England Patriots. They required a last-second miracle to get that game back. Green Bay almost got knocked over by the Bengals, who looked like they were completely incapable of scoring points the week before against a bad Texans team. I mean, how that was even close is, again, that's almost as big an upset as anything else. I said when Sunday Night Football started that it would be just typical of this week if Washington then went and just shellacked Oakland in the Sunday Night Football game, and it's exactly what happened. Everything about this week seemed to just be one of those ridiculous week 1 or week 3 sequence of games where everything is just insane.
I like it. I like a reminder every now and again that it's the NFL. Anything can happen. It can be a little crazy. There's a lot of people talking about, well, the NFL's boring now. It's not as exciting. Of course, there's all this ratings debate and all that stuff as well. And I see a lot of people saying, look, college football is far better than the NFL. And I love myself some college football. Don't get me wrong. But you can't people trash the NFL because they're like, this one Thursday game that you gave me wasn't good, and I just saw this really 12 really exciting Saturday college football games. It's like, yeah, there's 90 college games every week, and you're comparing it to like your one Thursday night game or just a smaller slate of NFL football. I always say tune into Red Zone at 4 o'clock every Sunday. There is some exciting NFL action going.
If you just picked the home teams this week, by the way, you went 11-4 and would have had the best record of anybody in Pick Watch.
I thought that's usually your strategy.
It was. For a long time, it was pick the home teams unless... Having said that, it was pick the home teams unless there's a compelling reason not to. And there were many compelling reasons not to in this week. They just happened to all go that way anyway.
Right, so you had a team like Buffalo. So that was one of those games, too. You got Buffalo at home, against a Denver team that I was like, wait, they're 2-0, but I don't think that they're really a 2-0 team, and they played at home the first 2 weeks. Or you have Jacksonville, who they're just tough to beat at home in London, right? You just can't beat them over there. So we should have known coming in. Don't buy into some of those 2-0 teams.
I'm going back to just picking the home teams.
I like that strategy. You'll be fine in the long run. All right, give me some of your big takeaways from Week 3, other than the madness. Is it team-centric? Is it player-centric? What were some of the things that stood out from this week's action?
I think there's a few things that have come out of this week. Again, we've seen offensive lines cripple teams across the league. Several games were basically decided because of offensive line play, and the results, negative or positive, on that thing. I won't go too hard into that because we did a big thing on it last week.
Check out the archive. We talked about good offensive lines, bad offensive lines, the haves and the have-nots, and just what it really means in the NFL.
The Carolina Panthers, I think, was one of the more interesting results. Again, this was one where everything said that the Panthers should beat the Saints. That was a 91% consensus on PickWatch for the Panthers. And the Saints defense, the numbers surrounding it coming into this week were just astonishing in every
passer rating of
possible way.
Over 140 through 2 games. That's insane.
A perfect passer rating when they got pressure.
That was the better stat. I love that stat when you pulled that out.
I mean,
too.
It just shouldn't happen. So the idea was that even with a banged up Cam Newton, even with Cam Newton not at 100% with whatever injuries he's dealing with, he should have been made to look a lot better by this defense, and they'd have been fine. But it didn't happen that way. And what's really interesting is the way in which they are trying to get creative with Curtis Samuel and with Christian McCaffrey, which was supposed to be the thing that this offense was built on. This was what we were all looking forward to heading into the season, was how this creativity was going to result in this explosion of offense and get Cam Newton back to 2015 MVP levels Cam Newton.
Right.
But what's actually happening is, I think, if anything, it's doing the opposite, because they're not using those guys creatively in the passing game to scheme open, wide open throws deeper down the field, which I thought was the way of doing it. You get Christian McCaffrey matched up with a linebacker, and you send him deep because the linebacker can't cover Christian McCaffrey. And suddenly, instead of Cam Newton trying to fit the ball into Kelvin Benjamin's breadbasket 20 yards downfield, you've got a guy with nobody within 5 yards of him because he's just destroyed a linebacker.
Now, before the season, Sam, we debated what this new look offense was going to look like, right? So I had a different take on it. I thought it was more open up the short passing game and get a little bit more creative there, where Cam doesn't have great accuracy, but he, hitting open throws is a lot easier than hitting tight window throws. That's just, not rocket science there. So I thought they were open up the short pass game. You said it might open up the downfield pass game, mismatches. I also said there's a chance that it's just going to be this more creative run game and jet sweeps and all these different things. And has that actually been the way that they've been going?
That is what is happening, and that, I think, is what is hurting this offense, because what made the Carolina run game so effective in the past couple of years was the fact that they had a unique weapon in Cam Newton. They had a guy back there at quarterback, 6'6", 250 pounds, or whatever he is. Nobody else has a quarterback that is A, built like that, and B, capable of running the way he is. You've got a guy like Ben Roethlisberger who's sort of 6'5", 6'6", the same kind of broad numbers, same height, weight, but Ben Roethlisberger doesn't move like Cam Newton. So
a little different there.
Yeah, so you can't do the same things. So the Panthers were able to put Cam Newton back there and have him be a very viable, very real part of that rushing offensive threat, running QB power. Nobody else runs QB power. Not just, using Russell Wilson style read option looks against an option defender and basically only carry the ball when there's no threat, just take up what's there and then slide. Cam Newton is running between the tackles. Cam Newton is going head on head with linebackers because he outweighs them, because he's bigger than those guys. So that was what made this offense so difficult to defend, is that you have to contend with something that you don't have to for any other offense. Now what they're doing is the creativity surrounding McCaffrey and Jonathan Stewart there. It's more about how you get those guys both in the same backfield at the same time and give them both the ball, and figure out how those guys are both going to work as rushing threats. But it comes at the expense of dialing back how much they're using Cam Newton as a rushing threat. Now, part of that, I'm sure, is the fact that he's banged up at the moment, and they're basically trying to protect him as well, dial back on the number of attempts he has generally. But I think when you compare the two styles of offense, the one with Cam Newton as the focal point of the running attack, and the one where Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Stewart basically combine in the backfield as this kind of two-headed monster, one of those is so much harder for a defense to try and defend than the other, and it's the one they're going away from.
So I've never really liked the two runners, the two running backs, as opposed to the runner and the fullback, right? I've never really liked the idea of two running backs, and I don't in the backfield, unless it's like, shotgun, split backs, and it's more of a passing game mismatch type of thing. I don't think it creates the same type of rushing mismatches, to your point, because, are you really worried about Christian McCaffrey as a lead blocker or Jonathan Stewart as a lead blocker, or in Tennessee's case where they put DeMarco Murray as a hand-in-the-dirt tight end a couple weeks ago while Derrick Henry took a carry? Like, that's not creating mismatches. That's telling DeMarco Murray to go block Khalil Mack. That's not good for the offensive football team. So I've never bought into that. Now, I think that's where the catch-22 is here. They got these guys supposedly to protect Cam Newton. We don't want him taking hits. But we do know it is so difficult to defend power one way, counter the other way. So they could run with him and Jonathan Stewart in the backfield, and you could hand it off to Stewart with an option look. So you're going to have to have that extra man in the box to account for Cam as well. But you hand off to Stewart, you pull a guard, and you have a great running back with the ball. Or you run it the other way, you pull a guard the other way, and you have Cam Newton. You have probably the best running quarterback in the NFL. That is creative and difficult to stop. But I could also see them wanting to get away from that to save Cam and to get more creative with the other guys. But I still think it needs to come down to the short passing game and making Cam more efficient in the short game.
I don't know that you're ever going to get that guy, though. I think you almost need to accept that for Cam Newton to be a top-level NFL quarterback, you have to integrate, you have to lean on what he brings you in the running game, because if you don't, he's just an inaccurate quarterback. I mean, you can't shoehorn a guy like that to being just a pocket passer. Now, maybe there's a halfway house between the two, and you end up trying to do what the Seahawks do with Russell Wilson and even what the Bills do with Tyrod Taylor in terms of using him in the run game but not exposing him to between the tackles carries. So forget trying to have him overpower linebackers. Let's just take advantage of what he can give you as a running threat, but make him protect himself.
Explain the difference, because when Cam's running either QB power or counter, or if he, when he is running between the tackles, how that scheme is different from, say, what Russell Wilson does, where Wilson, every time Wilson puts the ball into the running back's belly, it's an option look, and he'll only really pull it if the defense truly overcommits, and then he can protect himself because he's wide open on
Wilson's
the edge.
The easiest thing, because basically they're running inside zone every play. They're giving you this inside zone look. The line zone blocks in one direction. The running back heads in the same direction, usually shotgun snap. The running back is to the left of the quarterback. The line starts to zone block to the right. The running back takes the handoff, an option look, the handoff in that direction. They'll option the defender to the left-hand side, so the quarterback is optioning that guy, and only if that guy crashes down onto the running back to stop the cutback against the grain in that zone run, will the quarterback pull the ball and take off into the unassigned space that guy is abandoning. So what Russell Wilson will do is, like you said, every single look will be that option look, and really only when a team stops respecting Russell Wilson's ability to run the ball will they pull that, and Russell Wilson just picks up 15 free yards because they've given it to them.
Right.
So it's really used as just a tool to keep a defense honest and not have them crash down and just destroy these runs before they get anywhere. What the Panthers were doing with Cam Newton with this QB power stuff is they were using him basically as the running back. So you would have an extra blocker leading through the hole, and Cam Newton is following this guy between the tackles, going head-on-head with linebackers and defensive linemen and whatever other trash you end up in the middle of a running play, and relying on the fact that he is a giant body who can sustain that level of punishment. So you're exposing your quarterback or your ball carrier to a completely different level of hits and different frequency of hits than you are for a guy like Russell Wilson, who's basically just being used as an athletic tool to keep a defense honest. So, I mean, maybe the solution is to try and do more of that, dial back the creativity that Cam Newton allowed you to have as a running threat on offense, but still exploit the fact that he can be a threat as a ball carrier.
And that might be the safest way. And look, I'm still going to come back to the short passing game. I don't think you ever make Cam, this pinpoint short pass game guy, but hopefully some easier throws there to just help them be, stay on schedule a little bit more as an offense and be less boom or bust. So far this season on short passes, what I would consider short, so that's 0 to 9 yards, Cam is 20 for 34, only 140 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, a passer rating of 56 on 1 to 9 yards. And those are passes normally, you're talking about, just for perspective, passer rating, because they're shorter passes, you're going to complete more, and you're going to have passer ratings in the 90s, 100s, and he's at 56. So they just need more easy plays as a part of that Carolina Panthers offense. But that was something coming into the season. I thought it's still one of the fascinating things to watch is how that offense really unfolds. How about the Saints defense? Can they only play defense on grass? I think that's really what it is. If you put them on turf, even at home, they're just a disaster. They look like a Big 12 defense, but you put them on grass, and those guys can play.
You think there's actually something to that, or they just happen to run into an inept Panthers attack this week?
They probably ran into an inept attack. Look, the Saints defense is really just bad at home, though. I mean, there is something about the dome, and I don't know if the turf is a factor, but they blow coverages at home left and right. But look, before the season, you and I both looked at the Saints and said, hey, maybe they're putting together enough pieces there on defense. It was atrocious weeks 1 and 2. I'm not ready to fully take this and say, hey, they've turned it around. But it was definitely a more encouraging outing. They have pressured the quarterback a little bit these first few weeks, despite being bad on the back end. You have a guy like Marcus Williams, rookie safety, making plays, had an interception yesterday. Marshawn Lattimore, that poor guy, when he stays healthy, he can play too. He had a really nice game against the Patriots when they got torched. So there is talent to piece together there for the Saints.
But going back to the Panthers for a minute, they really need to not just scheme those short, easy passes and try and increase Cam Newton's efficiency underneath, but they need to do what I thought they might do heading into the season and use McCaffrey more as a matchup weapon to give him easier deep shots as well, because those are the throws that makes Cam Newton a top-level quarterback when he's on his game. It's the ability to hit those intermediate deep passes the way Carson Palmer was playing out of his skin in 2015 as well. But they're just not using McCaffrey in that way. I mean, he's had pretty decent success in terms of a receiver, but it's all conventional out of the backfield stuff, almost all of it. He got 9 catches this week out of 11 targets for 100 yards, but his average depth of target was 3.5 yards downfield, which was like the 12th highest figure in the league among running backs. You need to give him wide receiver routes. You need to actually split him out and make teams respect his ability to play as a wide receiver. Otherwise, you're not really achieving anything with this.
Yeah, so it comes back to the fit. Was he really the best fit for Carolina? Remains to be seen, but I still would have loved to see McCaffrey in a really good short passing attack.
So an interesting comparison is Christian McCaffrey's average depth of target this year is 3.1 yards downfield, which is running back standard kind of number. Duke Johnson in Cleveland, who has actually been used as more of a wide receiver with their woes in that group, his average depth of target is shot up to 8.6 yards. Same with CJ Prosise, who's basically been used as a wide receiver by the Seahawks as well. Those guys have been used as a legitimate wide receiver more, and the average depth of target is more than 5 yards higher than Christian McCaffrey's, who's the same level as Amir Abdullah, Tariq Cohen, those kind of guys. So you don't necessarily, I'm not saying you need to make him a full-time wide receiver or anything, but you need to bridge the gap between those two numbers.
Yeah, tap into that skill set.
That number needs to go from 3 to 5 or 6, and teams need to respect the fact that he could be either at any given time.
Okay, a lot of other surprises in Week 3. We talked about the Jacksonville Jaguars dominating the Baltimore Ravens. Well, I think the Ravens were a little bit of fool's gold after the first couple weeks. Flacco returned back to Flacco. What was that stat yesterday? -1 air yard.
Yeah, he finished the game with negative yards in the air in terms of passing the ball downfield.
So he had more yards after the catch than he had total
passing
yards. Is the way to,
which was only 28, which in and of itself is a mind-bending statistic. In today's NFL, to end a game with 28 passing yards.
Here's what I think we've seen, and again, this comes down to those small sample sizes. You don't jump to a conclusion in week one, and you certainly don't jump to a conclusion after week two. But we can look at 3 weeks of action now. Jacksonville's defensive front dominated against the Houston Texans in week one, got dominated against the Tennessee Titans in week two, and then dominated the Baltimore Ravens in week three. So I think overall you're looking at a Jacksonville defensive front led by Calais Campbell that is the best they've had in a long time. And then we just further the praise for the Tennessee Titans. They've only given up 6 pressures over the last 2 weeks. That was against Jacksonville and against Seattle this past weekend. Tennessee's offensive line, 6 pressures over the last 2 weeks. So Tennessee, who we rated as our top offensive line in the league last year, again off to a great start. But I think that's what we're coming down to with Jacksonville. They're going to be a very difficult defensive team to face week in, week out.
They are, and I think that Titans team is interesting because they are proving to be they're proving to back up what we saw last year in terms of how that offensive line is doing. They've gone up against what looked like 2 extremely good defensive fronts and basically completely eliminated them. I mean, this week against the Seahawks, not only did they basically allow no pressure whatsoever, every big name you can think of on that Seahawks defense got no pressure. They got 2 total, and it came from KJ Wright running over DeMarco Murray on a big blitz and a backup defensive tackle. Nobody else got pressure on that defense. Plus, they got run all over by the Titans.
Professional tease here. If you guys have been paying attention to our hashtag Well Actually segment, that's Well Actually. Sam and I have been partnering with our friends over at Sports Illustrated every week to dive into a deeper topic using PFF data. The SI guys are doing a fantastic job. I cannot speak highly enough of what they're doing to animate it and make it look great. And it's a fun little segment as part of their Wednesday Pro Football Now show, which you guys should check out. We'll be retweeting it on Twitter this week at PFF_Sam and at PFF_Steve. But the tease part of that was, yes, we're going to dive into those Seahawks numbers. 1 week ago, everybody was saying Derrick Henry is ready to take over. He is the guy. But DeMarco Murray, 75-yard run, 115 yards. Is this still a two-headed monster? Is it too early to say, hey, Derrick Henry's ready to take over? And does it make them even better, the fact that they do have 2 capable backs?
Well, aside from anything else, they're not making that change. So whether everybody else thinks that Derrick Henry is ready to take over, the Titans don't. Or at least they don't think DeMarco Murray is ready to relinquish that job and are in no inclination to do it anytime soon. So whatever happens, that's going to end up as something of a two-headed monster. And I don't see any reason. I don't think either of those guys need to be every down backs in order to be effective and successful. I think both those guys can operate fine, splitting some kind of workload, and both will, I think, be better for it heading into late in the season and into fourth quarters of games, because defenses can wear down, and you're not going to wear down both of those guys, even if you manage to take one of them out of the game to some extent. DeMarco Murray's 75-yard run this week was bizarre in that both that run and the Rashard Matthews long bubble screen run as well seemed to carve their way through the entire Seahawks defense, which seemed to be in pretty good position to stop the play at about 5 different points on both those plays. You don't often see the Seahawks defense kind of collapse in the middle of a play like that.
Well, so here, where are we with the Seahawks now? We're talking about a defensive front that's not playing like they have in the past. But the results before this week weren't disastrous. Week 1 against Green Bay, they did okay.
Well, this is what I'm saying about this Titans team, in that they went out there and basically out-physicaled the Seahawks, which never happens to that defense. Maybe they've been exposed or they've been beaten by big plays, but I can't think of a good time where they've gone out and basically just had the crap beaten out of them by a tougher, stronger, more physically intense team, which is what the Titans did to them. I mean, they went out there and just beat them.
That's a better way of putting it, because I remember certain games, something like 2015 against the Cincinnati Bengals. They just kept, their classic cover 3 scheme. They would bust their coverage, and Andy Dalton was finding open receivers down the seam. So they've had certain bouts of play where they just haven't looked great, but they usually figure it out. So you're saying this was more physically beaten up like you haven't seen before.
They got physically dominated in this game in a way that I haven't seen happen to them in a long time. Now, maybe this was just, like I say, this was the Tennessee Titans being this damn good and this damn physical against teams, because so far they've gone up against some really good defensive fronts and beaten them heavily. But maybe there is something to the Seahawks defense declining a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's something to keep an eye on with Seattle. I still come back to they're talented enough. I think they've had, I know even though this is different, they've had bouts of poor play, as has Russell Wilson, and they always seem to find a way to come back. But they're sitting at 1-2. Need that defensive line to come back.
This was a fun game though in terms of how chippy and/or violent it got. In that, I think Richard Sherman got flagged 3 times on the same play. Taylor Lewan launched himself into a rumble on the sideline after Richard Sherman late-hitted Marcus Mariota going out of bounds. I would love to see the sound effects of what Taylor Lewan was screaming in the face of Richard Sherman.
I hope he was mic'd up.
It was pretty. There would be just one long sequence of bleeps. Like there would be no actual words left by the end of them bleeping him out. But he looked like a very, very scary individual on that play. That almost caused the whole thing to kick off. But the point I was getting at there is that it's not like the Seahawks just weren't up for this game for whatever reason. They were into it. This was a physical encounter that got chippy and aggressive early on, and they just came out in the worst end of it.
I'm looking at this Titans team so far. Pretty battle-tested type of team, right?
Yeah.
I keep coming back to that Oakland win in Week 1, and I know Oakland laid an egg on Sunday Night Football against Washington.
Yeah.
But that was a huge win for Oakland, beating Tennessee in Week 1 on the road. The Titans come back, have a great bounce-back game against the Jacksonville team that we were just talking about. They're going to be tough every single week with that defense especially. And then beating Seattle at home, another big win for the Titans. Want to take a quick break to tell you about our friends over at Draft. That's draft.com or Draft in your app store. This is a great way to play fantasy football. They've got season-long games that are of best ball style. So they'll give you your best players every single week. You don't even have to worry about waiver wire or trades or picking players up or anything. Injuries, don't have to worry. They're going to take your best players. It's over at Draft or playdraft.com. All sorts of other great games, too. You can draft with only 2 people, 3 people, head-to-head. And the best part about this is you guys can win real money. Entries start as little as $1. You can go up to $100 games. And if you guys use the promo code PFF with your first deposit, you get a free $3 game. So you can get in there, spend your $3. It could be on a 3-person draft, a head-to-head draft, a 6-person draft. I'm looking at it right now. All sorts of different options. Games start every couple minutes. You just sign up, wait for it to be filled, and then boom, you guys are drafting. It's quick, easy, and efficient, and a whole lot of fun to play. I've got multiple teams that I'm keeping track of throughout the season. So far, so good, Sam. I think I'm going to pull some money out of this this draft relationship here.
This week didn't send things careering off into the siding.
No, because I signed up for the best ball leagues. I have great depth. So even when things don't go as expected, I trust my depth. I trust my drafting. So
nice.
I'm going to be okay. That's PFF is your promo code. PFF over at Draft or Play Draft. All right, what other big games did we take a look at this week? Crazy stuff that happened. Buffalo Bills beating the Denver Broncos.
Well, this is clearly a case of Tyrod Taylor being better than you thought he was.
Okay, so far so good.
Yeah.
For Tyrod. After breaking down the film, seeing some weaknesses, and seeing a terrible preseason.
Alleged weaknesses.
The guy's just too good.
This also featured maybe the most ridiculous penalty I've ever seen called in a game.
Explain it.
Is there a word? Is there like an actual technical description for what this is? Von Miller, Tyrod Taylor is on the floor having been sacked or hit down or something. The end of a play. Von Miller walks over, offers him the hand, to pick him up, and just as Tyrod Taylor goes to reach for the hand, pulls it away and gives him the old, laughing face.
Is there an official term for that?
I think there is, and I don't know what it is. Von Miller cracks up. It's a joke. He's giggling. Tyrod Taylor points at him, starts giggling as well. The two of them are just having fun out there. The old cliche. They're just having fun. And official right beside him launches the flag into the air, 15-yard penalty, which extended the drive. I think that was 3rd down and immediate first down. Nobody could believe that an official threw a flag on that play. Just unbelievable. If players are getting fined for face mask or just a football play that happens to have been illegal because of the way physics moves, officials should be getting fined for throwing a flag on two guys just having a joke at the end of a play.
Is that a new low?
Yes.
For penalties?
Yes, it is absolutely insane. That is a new low for penalties, and the fact that this catch rule is still so hard to actually exist is a continued low for the NFL being unable to establish what a catch is. Sterling Shepard this week had a Calvin Johnson play in the end zone where he quite clearly caught the ball, fell over, lost the ball on the ground. No, didn't catch it.
Look, I'm getting away from the Twitter consensus in my life and believing
Generally?
the Twitter consensus in general.
Okay.
I'm getting away from it, but I truly believe the Twitter consensus on a catch would work. If you just go to social media, like if the ref said this, the play is under review, we're going to take it to social media and see what people think. I think they would get it right.
Or like ask the audience on, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? You've each got your own little control button on your seat. Press A or B, catch or no catch. The stadium votes, and then we get to see.
Challenge? Is this a new type of challenge? So what if a coach could say, "I'm going to let the ref check this one, or I'm going to take it to the stadium, social media. I'm going to ask the audience."
I think
each coach has two different types of challenges.
I like it. I like ask the audience. I also think that simply the grandma test works. I think this is a situation where you lean on grandma's experience, and you have one grandma sitting in a booth somewhere, and you simply show her the play and ask, "Did this guy catch the ball?" And in this situation with Sterling Shepard, she would answer, "Of course he caught the ball. It hit both hands, it didn't move, and he caught the ball. Then he fell over and he lost it."
The grandma
So
test.
grandma nails it, whereas the NFL goes, "No, I'm sorry, this ball came out 5 minutes after he caught it, so it's not a catch."
I like the grandma test. We're changing the game here. Is the NFL listening? Roger?
One
Roger,
rule
you
change
listening?
at a time.
All right, we're changing the game here. Let's talk about the AFC West real quick because we're talking about a division that is supposed to be really deep. Taylor, our producer, is sitting here shaking his head. His poor Chargers, 0-3 right now. So we're not even going to talk about the Chargers.
Can we just start with Menelik Watson watch? Menelik didn't give up a sack this week.
Why? That's a major upset.
Isn't it? Jerry Hughes was supposed to get, it was one of the easier ones in his schedule, but
still got plenty of time. He's still got a lot of challenging
for now,
pressures.
the Menelik Watson ticker does not advance.
Still sitting at 6 sacks up on the wall. Denver Broncos go from 2-0 to 2-1. We mentioned the Oakland Raiders lose. Kansas City Chiefs remain at 3-0, looking like one of the more well-rounded teams in the NFL. Does the division lose a little luster, or are we still feeling pretty good about them? I thought Oakland certainly laid a dud.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Denver, I don't think it's a crazy idea that they're going to go cross-country and lose to Buffalo in their first road game.
No, and I did say before that game that I think Buffalo has looked better than we were expecting them to. But
not Elo. Elo had the middle of the pack.
That's where it came from. The Elo, on the against the spread stuff was saying that this was a better team than everybody was giving them credit for. And they'd looked it through a couple of weeks. So we were expecting this team to be blown apart and, rebuilding, and Tyrod Taylor struggling badly because they're not playing to his strengths, and, genuinely them to be one of the worst teams in the league. Turns out they're actually a lot better than that because the defense suddenly is playing a lot closer to its potential. And Tyrod obviously is awesome. So between those two things, they're actually a better team. So, yeah, I guess it's not crazy. It's one that's going to look, I think, less crazy the further the season goes. But for week 3, it looked pretty nuts. I don't know yet what we know about Denver and Oakland. I think we're fairly confident that Kansas City will be one of the contending teams come the end of the season, whether they win that division, whether they get into the playoffs as a wild card. I think Mike's hot take of Kansas City still not making the playoffs is probably already in tatters, along with his hot take of...
he's just not allowed to have takes on the AFC West.
It does seem to be his Achilles heel this year. So I'm fairly confident that that's going to be correct. I'm fairly confident that the Chargers don't have enough to live with the rest of this division, given how they've started. And then I don't know quite where Denver and Oakland are yet. I think we've seen the best and the worst of both of them, and they're probably going to be somewhere in that middle.
I saw some numbers on Derek Carr in primetime. Somebody was posting them on Twitter, and he's close to getting that Andy Dalton primetime treatment. He's got some very poor primetime games, like last year against Kansas City.
Well, he just couldn't play Kansas City last year. I mean, his 2 worst games of the season by far were against Kansas City.
And that's going to be a big concern this year. He's got to
go
through
them again.
Because the game that he had last night against Washington is what he did against Kansas City last year, 2.7 yards per attempt in Kansas City. Oakland fans were telling us it was too cold. You can't hold that against them, which was
Too cold?
yes, that was a real argument
It was
from
chilly.
Raiders fans. Imagine defending your MVP candidate
Whether it was too cold.
with weather.
Well,
Could you
especially in Kansas City. It's not like, you know.
It was a little rough that night, but either way, the point is, Derek Carr's struggled in prime time. A lot of times, people think Dalton is just this horrendous quarterback because of primetime games, when he's a reasonable, middle of the pack type of guy. I don't want Derek Carr to get this reputation like he's bad just because it's primetime and that's when everybody's watching. Generally, he's a good quarterback, but
Generally, he's an excellent quarterback. But that was bad.
He's had some duds. He's had a few duds there. I'm more concerned with that Oakland defense, which I think we looked at and we kept saying, okay, adding more pieces. I'm talking about Carl Joseph as this most important player in the AFC, but this defense, I know, right? This defense still looks like they could be had on any given day, and Kirk Cousins was certainly in rhythm and
because
moving the chains.
At its heart, this defense is still Khalil Mack and then a bunch of people. And until they get
a bunch
few
of
other
people are supposed to be average enough to make this a decent enough defense.
Yeah, but they're not. If you figure out, if you have a good offense, the bunch of people isn't going to get it done, and Khalil Mack can't get it done on his own. You're going to need to give more than just a bunch of guys to surround Khalil Mack for this defense to actually be good. The other thing to come out of that game was a Josh Doxson sighting. And not just a Josh Doxson sighting, but Josh Doxson doing what he does, which was going up over the top of David Amerson and taking away a ball that should have been intercepted, essentially. That was David Amerson's ball to come down with deep down the right sideline. Doxson just went up, took it away, scored a touchdown.
Before I get into the PFF grading on that, got to pay some bills and introduce you guys to one of our new sponsors. This entire episode is brought to you by PredictionMachine.com. Prediction Machine, a new generation in sports analytics, where they play the games 50,000 times before they're actually played. Make better picks with proven data-driven analysis. Subscribe at PredictionMachine.com today and earn a $5 credit that can be used towards the purchase of any package.
Did we simulate this podcast 50,000 times before firing it live?
Chances are, if we had 50,000 attempts at this, it would come out pretty good.
Would it?
One attempt, not so good.
We seem to be, I think we're better. We're first take men. You get to 50,000 take 50,000, we're going to be in ribbons. It's not going to go well.
Yeah, a little inside baseball, guys. I just screwed up our open to actually about 5-6 times.
Well, you did it, I think, 3 times, and then you screwed it up so much that I forgot how to say we're Pro Football Focus.
You actually stopped and laughed at me at one point, too, when I tried to pause and compose myself, because the power of editing allows you to do such things, and you just weren't having it.
Well, it was jarring, I'll just say that, for you to just stopped immediately and reset like a computer.
You can't.
You hit the reset button with mid-roll, and it was unusual. It just took me by surprise, and I found it funny.
You can't expect perfection from me every week, Sam. We're getting better. We're just trying to get better every week.
Yeah.
We'll have it figured out.
We're shooting for that 1 week this season where we nail everything first take.
Yeah, Super Bowl week, maybe. We'll be ready by then.
Is that only because there's one game?
Yeah, we probably can't screw it up at that point. That Cousins touchdown, I want to go back, discuss some grading on that real quick. I think we have a general rule on 50-50 balls and jump balls. And the more I dive into the data, they're not really 50-50 balls. It's really like 20-80 balls. Those balls don't come down for catches most of the time. I'm talking true 50-50 balls where the ball location, there's zero part of the ball location that is more favorable for the receiver.
Yeah,
it is the in this particular play, Amerson was in position. You're throwing a jump ball to a cornerback in position.
This was a ball that was thrown to David Amerson that Josh Doxson just happened to be able to take away from him.
Now, I'm fine with saying this is a zero or an expected throw or just a reasonable shot by the quarterback. It's not. It's also not in a position where it's more favorable for the cornerback to make a play because you're trusting your receiver to get to a point to jump up and go get it. And that's what Josh Doxson did. So from a PFF grading standpoint, it was probably 40 or 50 air yards. So you get your air yards, which everybody likes to tout as this great stat. It's not a great stat. It's a decent stat. But you get the 50 air yards. We would call that a 50-50 ball because if he just knocked it down as what should have happened on that play, we would zero it the same way as well. That is all Josh Doxson going up, making a play, and earning stats for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. There's a certain degree to which wide receivers can invalidate the accuracy of a quarterback. You want an ideal ball location. This is further to the right. It's over the head a little bit more so that Doxson can run past Amerson and catch the ball in a place only he can bring it in.
And that would have been a big-time throw if he had done that.
Terrible name, but yes. Once the ball was coming in, the arc it was at the very best 50-50. You're saying it's just up there, the better guy is going to go and make the play. And if anything, Amerson was in better position because he had inside track and all this kind of stuff was squeezing him to the sideline. But Doxson was able to go up there and just take the ball out from over his head and erase the accuracy. It didn't matter that the ball wasn't the most pinpoint accurate pass because you have the receiver that's better doing that than the other guy that's trying to cover you.
The good news on Josh Doxson, that's exactly what we saw from him at TCU. We did chart contested catches for that draft class that year. He was the best at it, going up and making those plays. And my whole offseason take on Kirk Cousins and the Redskins, or at least Kirk Cousins, I'll have a stat on him later, a nice elite signature stat that we'll pull out. But I keep saying Cousins gets elevated by his teammates. And now he lost Pierre Garçon, he lost Deshaun Jackson. He needed guys like Josh Doxson to step up. And this is a perfect example of him being elevated by his teammates once again on a big play.
Another thing to come out of that game, by the way, when did Chris Thompson turn into LaDainian Tomlinson?
According to my Twitter timeline, it's always been there.
Oh, okay.
Everybody was like, yeah, what are you talking about? Chris Thompson, huge playmaker. This is what he is. He's been like this every year. Should have been a first-round pick.
Okay.
That's what they told me.
Fair enough. Then we're pretty late to the party.
So far this year, he's been really good. But he's been a guy. He's a draw screen guy that they've used in the past. He's picked up a lot of yards on draws on 3rd and 29 and all that stuff. But
he looked really good yesterday.
He looked really good, absolutely. And again, my Kirk Cousins stat will match that. He's just throwing, a little screen to Chris Thompson, who's weaving through the defense, creating big plays. That's a big weapon for Washington's offense that needed to replace a lot of big play capabilities, particularly in Deshaun Jackson.
I like it. Are we doing our 3 stats for the week again? That was good.
Yeah, you want to do 3 stats?
Yeah.
Let's roll through it. You got to give me your first one. These are all almost all from PFF Elite.
That one is. Yeah, I think all of mine are from PFF Elite.
Taylor, give me some music for this stuff.
Oh, music.
We need music.
Stats of the week.
Can we just play NFL Films music, or do we really have to license that? Would anybody tell on us if we had it?
Somebody would. There's always that one guy. Taylor probably would.
People from NFL Films are probably listening to us too, so let's
also
not check.
All right, my first statistic, and I'm using this not just because I invented this statistic, inventor of the elusive rating.
It needs some work.
It doesn't. Well, no.
Speaking of poor names, we have to answer more Twitter questions when we say, "Hey, Marshawn Lynch, top in elusive rating," and everybody's like, "No, he just trucks people."
People need to look at a dictionary and understand what the word elusive means because it fits.
People picture Reggie Bush, not Marshawn Lynch.
And okay, that's not my fault. If people don't understand what the word means, that's their problem.
It's a little your fault.
They need a thesaurus. All right, the elusive rating, generally speaking, fits on a 0 to 100 scale. And given that I did it and I have the math capability of a 5-year-old, it's actually stuck remarkably well to that over the years, despite discovering a glitch in it last week, which has gone completely undiscovered for about 7 years. Anywho.
Don't lose credibility here.
No, it still works. It's only for people that haven't actually forced a missed tackle at any point. It breaks them. But Kareem Hunt. Phenomenal rushing statistics, leading the league, I think, in rushing, has another bunch of passing yards in there as well. Broken tackles all over the place. The elusive rating was designed to try and isolate a running back's performance from his blocking. So how much did you do yourself? How many tackles did you break? How much yards after contact did you get? And on what is supposed to be a 0 to 100 scale, Kareem Hunt currently has an elusive rating of 158.0. Now, last season, the best elusive rating in the league was 76. So more than twice what that is. This year, the next best mark is 72.5. So again, not just necessarily a small sample size thing, because he's more than double the next best this season as well, through 3 games.
That's the type of number we see in college.
Yes.
And actually, through a few games in college, we don't really see that number in college.
No.
That's ridiculous.
That number is absolutely insane.
All a part of PFF Elite. All right, I've been hinting at Kirk Cousins and his number.
Yeah.
Yards after the catch. I did mention air yards before. You don't just completely lean on air yards.
The Flacco one was good. We should use that.
The Flacco one was good.
It was a bonus elite stat.
Bonus elite stat. -1 yard through the air yesterday against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But Kirk Cousins leads the league in yards after the catch, 62.8. A percentage of his yards that come after the catch is what I should say. 62.8% of his yards have come after the catch. So that is your screen pass to Chris Thompson, your screen passes in general, your little dump off that a guy does all the work. Again, this isn't a stat that completely it's not completely one that you just lean on as, hey, this is good, this is bad. There are certain plays where the quarterback has to hit a guy in stride and it leads to yak, and that is great. And it usually comes through in our grading system properly. But for perspective, when you're just looking at a guy's stats and numbers, if a guy's getting all of his yards after the catch, chances are his numbers are a little inflated. So Kirk Cousins leading the league, 62.8%. Number 2, right behind him, Alex Smith, 62% of his yards coming after the catch. Number 3 is Aaron Rodgers, over 60% of his yards after the catch as well.
You made me curious with the college mention of the elusive rating, so I went back and looked. Kareem Hunt was 6th last year with an elusive rating of 110.7. Know who's number 1? 121.0?
Did I know? I should know this.
You should. Well,
Dalvin?
Sure. Yeah, there you go. Dalvin Cook, who, again, has been one of the standouts so far.
I think we had a nice little...
image
nice going up on the Twitter account.
On the Twitter, and a nice little comparison article on the website between Dalvin Cook and Kareem Hunt, both what they did in their final year in college and what they have currently done through 3 weeks. They were number 1 and number 2 graded college running backs last season, and I think they're number 1 and number 3 right now through 3 weeks of the season. The leading rushers, 1 and 2, and also the leading rushers of yards after contact so far.
I think I was going to use both of them in a stat later,
okay.
too.
Never mind. That's a shame, Steve.
Well, good thing we had the Flacco one.
Yeah, bonus. So you're still net even. You're good.
That's what we're trying to do.
Here's a good one. 2016 Indianapolis Colts, as an offensive line unit, surrendered 262 total pressures over the season, which is a crazy number and the most we have seen from any offensive line over the past decade.
Side note, their quarterback Andrew Luck is currently out injured.
Broken. May or may not be related. 262. So that's a number you've got to keep in your mind. Would you like to guess how many the Seattle Seahawks are currently on pace to allow?
You've asked me this before, and I already
know.
guessed. So
you've already guessed it and already got it wrong.
I would have said 275.
Yes. It is, in fact, 304.
Wow.
So 42 more than the all-time record over the past decade is what the Seahawks are currently on pace to get. I can't hammer it all on the Seahawks, though, because Houston are only 1 behind in total pressures right now. So the Houston Texans are currently on pace to allow 299 total pressures. Again, quite significantly more than the 262 the Colts lead the last decade with.
Ouch, that's painful. I love the pace ones. They're a little bit cleaner here in week 3.
Oh yeah,
than they were in week 1.
They're completely legit now. They're fine.
Jalen Mills
week
was on pace for 3,000 receiving yards or something.
Well, yeah, it's receptions. No, he's actually doing okay in yardage. It's receptions that he's allowing a lot of.
And he just set a record, 21 targets?
21 targets. Bonus stat. 21 targets, the most we have ever seen a cornerback targeted over a week in the past decade.
We're just spitting the PFF database out at our listeners today. Sticking with cornerbacks, Jalen Ramsey of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So far, not only our top-graded cornerback, but allowing a passer rating of only 14.6 on throws into his coverage. What's that, 5 for 15 when targeting him? 5 for 15, 34 yards, has an interception and a pass breakup. Again, these numbers are not, I don't want to say they're common in college, but you see a lot of guys that have these gaudy passer ratings against and all that stuff. That's the type of numbers that Jalen Ramsey's putting up so far. Top-graded cornerback through 3 weeks.
Last 2 weeks, he's allowed a pass rating of 0.0, which is pretty good.
Way better off just throwing the ball into the dirt.
Way better.
Just throw it off.
39.6 is your passer rating if you just throw the ball into the dirt every play. So you are significantly better off not even trying to target Jalen Ramsey at the moment. Just dump it.
That reshaped Jacksonville secondary. A.J. Boye's got good numbers there, too. We talked about Calais Campbell and the defensive fronts. They're coming together in Jacksonville.
So my third statistic is Von Miller currently has 23 total pressures. So again, we're gonna extrapolate this out. We're on pace. Von Miller is on pace to set a record in the PFF era with 122 total pressures. 116 is the current record.
Wow.
What's really interesting about this, though, is who is in number 2. Can you guess who is number 2 in terms of total pressures so far through 3 weeks of the season?
In total pressures, number 2 is Calais Campbell?
No, it is not.
I don't have the answer in front of me, so.
It is Carl Lawson. Rookie Carl Lawson.
He's number 2, are you sure?
Reasonably. Maybe he's not number 2, and I'm just looking at the interesting figure that he's going to get spat out with, which is 91, if he extrapolates that over 16 games. But I was pretty sure he was number 2.
He's right up there.
Either way, 3rd-round rookie, 4th-round rookie, where did he go? 4th?
He went in the 4th.
Who we could not understand why he was so badly held in NFL circles.
We had him
he's killing people.
We had him as a first-round pick. And the internal discussion about Carl Lawson is like, okay, what does the NFL know? Why is nobody talking about him? Why did he fall? He did have some injury issues in college, couldn't stay on the field, and we just assumed, without any inside information, we assumed it was something injury-related. Probably was, but we also said, hey, the Bengals got a first-round caliber player, and on Sunday against Green Bay, 3 sacks and 7 hurries in that game, played a season-high, career-high 54 snaps.
All right, fine. Calais Campbell may have been 2nd with 18 total pressures, but Lawson is 3rd with 17, so it's still pretty impressive.
I don't need to be right, but I just want the listeners to get the right information.
That's fine.
Pretty impressive for Carl Lawson either way. Okay, I'm going to circle back to Kareem Hunt and Dalvin Cook. You've already given plenty of numbers there, but look, Kareem Hunt leading the NFL with 17 forced missed tackles. Dalvin Cook tied for 2nd with 13 with Jordan Howard. So we're talking about 2 rookie running backs and a second-year running back, all leading in missed tackles forced. Saw somebody tweet out about, I think it was Albert Breer, talking about all this influx of running back talent over the last couple of years. It's not a groundbreaking take or anything like that, but it is pretty cool to see it. You know, in this passing league, we're seeing this influx of running backs, and the top-end running backs, a guy like Kareem Hunt, can be absolute game changers.
Yeah,
you talk about the diminishing value of the running back, and there's different ways of looking at that. But top-end running backs, just like Marshawn Lynch in Seattle when he was there in his prime, I think the top-end guys are game changers.
Well, I think also the ones that are really devastating players are factors in the passing game as well.
Absolutely, that's true too.
Most of these guys that have made real big impacts have been receiving weapons as well. Dalvin Cook definitely is, although he's dropped some passes this year. Kareem Hunt certainly is. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey, we talked about before, about what he can do. The one that kind of bucks that trend, or the two, I guess, with a bit of an asterisk on one of them, is one, Jordan Howard, who it turns out can't catch anything at all, ever.
Weekly podcast update.
But you've got Tariq Cohen there, so it's not actually going to be an issue for the Bears because they can basically just split those guys. And 2, Leonard Fournette, who I'm still pretty sure does not have good enough hands to be a really effective weapon in the passing game. But those are the 2 guys that don't really have an effective part of their game as a receiver.
Breaking news in my ear.
Who?
Jordan Howard did not drop a pass on Sunday.
How many did he have thrown his way?
5 for 5.
5. Wow.
5 for 5, 26 yards. Did not drop a pass. He's now dropped 2 out of his 10 catchable passes this week.
That's still
this
not very
year.
good.
Way better than 2 out of 4.
Oh, it is, but still not good.
Way better than 2 out of 4. So
I've got a bonus.
He improved his game.
Well, bonus statistic and trivia for you because this is fun. Putting you on the spot, always good.
Oh man.
Who has the largest number of total pressures without a sack so far this season? I can give you the number of pressures as well, if that would help.
I was just doing some research. I would say I know who it is.
Do you?
J.J. Watt.
No.
Really?
Yes. He is number 2, though.
Oh, so I knew Watt was up there.
You did.
Okay, so
this guy has 2 more quarterback knockdowns than J.J. Watt. Also 2 more defensive stops.
I don't know. Who is it?
DeForest Buckner.
Ah, DeForest.
16 total quarterback pressures, no sacks.
He's put together, I tweeted this out the other day too, last 2 games, probably the best 2 games of his career. Now, granted, one was against Seattle.
Yeah, that's going to help.
He was against Seattle a couple weeks ago, against the Rams on Thursday Night Football.
How many pressures would you get against the Seattle offense? If you're out there, say, 45 snaps?
So I've got good length. I could probably sneak in for 2 or 3.
2?
Yeah. I think you'd probably move me around the defensive line.
Yeah.
And then once you kick me inside, I think I got 1 against Glowinski if they start him.
Okay.
At right guard. And I would get at least 1 bull rush against Reese Odiambo.
A bull rush?
Yeah, I mean, Reese has been bull rushed pretty badly.
Have you got that kind of leverage? Can you get low enough to really exploit the bull rush?
On 1 or 2 snaps.
1 or 2 snaps?
Yes. I have inconsistent pad level, which means at some point it'll be good.
All right.
There's a difference between bad pad level and inconsistent pad level.
That's true.
So I'd sneak a couple pressures in there. Either way, DeForest Buckner's playing better.
Yeah.
And By the way, I know J.J. Watt's not lighting up the stat sheet as far as sacks go. Go back and watch the first 2 plays of that Patriots game. It was like cheat sheet J.J. Watt. Run game where he is past his blocker as soon as the running back gets the ball.
Yeah, I mean, again,
making plays in the
statistics are there, just not the sacks.
I'm talking the traditional stats. Yes.
Four hits, 10 hurries, a batted pass, 6 defensive stops. He's still making plays. It just he hasn't yet got a sack. It's going to come.
Crazy week 3, fellas. Is it wrap-up time, Sam?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
No other trivia or put me on the spot?
What was the official sign-off with our how do you officially sign off these things?
I'm not going to say it.
No? Okay. Not safe for work, I believe, is our official sign-off.
Get out, mother. I can't say it, but that's how Sam wants me to sign off.
I'm pretty sure that's how you sign off these
Instead,
things.
I'm going to give you guys our weekly programming note. The PFF podcast has expanded to 4 episodes per week. This is number 1. You guys are listening to the Week 3 review. We'll also have the Big Time Throwcast Quarterback Analysis Edition on Tuesday/Wednesday. That's myself and Zach Robinson. Sam and I will be back on Wednesday for probably our most lighthearted episode. That's the mailbag. We need you guys to fuel that. Podcasts at profootballfocus.com. That's how you guys email us. Podcasts, plural, at profootballfocus.com. We did have somebody ask if it was plural or singular. It is plural. You can also hit us up on Twitter at PFF_podcast with your questions.
By the way, if you're going to email us, and I suggest you do, come up with your plays. That was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life was our walkthrough last week of the new Hail Mary plan. If you have a play that you have sitting back there in the old brain box that you haven't debuted yet on social media or whatever your platform of choice is, fire it our way and let us walk through these plays. X's and O's discussion on the podcast. Frankly, I don't think there's a better way we could spend our time.
Fire up Microsoft Paint.
Yes.
Draw it out there. I mean, kudos. Look, if you guys have not listened to last week's mailbag, please go to the archive right now. Go to the archive, listen to the mailbag. Even if you fast forward to probably the 35 minute mark, where we're breaking down the new way to complete a Hail Mary. It's truly unstoppable. We talked you through the play. But that's the type of midweek content we're looking at. Not just play breakdowns, but we'll answer all of your questions. Anything good that you guys want to discuss. And then, of course, Thursday, we will be previewing Week 4's action. So please stay with us all week. Hit that subscribe button if you have not. And don't forget, if you guys are looking for PFF's great products, go to profootballfocus.com/PFF-offers. That's PFF-offers. That is the best place to get your cheapest PFF Edge option. Go check it out. We've got some great offers on that page. All right, Sam, that'll do it. We'll be back in a couple days. Thanks to everybody for listening.